They say a mother's love is eternal. I used to believe that. Maybe I still do. But what they never tell you is how invisibility creeps in, not all at once, but little by little, as the years pass and your children stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as. Background: my name is Hazel Walker. I'm 68 years old. I've never had a career that came with titles or trophies. My world was made up of school lunches, grocery lists, and birthday candles. I was the quiet force behind a family that never noticed it had one. Now, I live in a neat suburban house with my son Derek, his wife Alicia, and their daughter Sophie. It's a home I helped pay for, though no one ever mentions that part anymore. Every day, I move through the house like a ghost, cleaning dishes after dinner no one thanks me for, folding clothes that aren't mine, picking Sophie up from school without being asked. I don't complain. I just exist. Like furniture, familiar, useful, and forgotten. They're not cruel. Just distracted. Polite, sometimes. But there's a quiet cruelty in being constantly overlooked. In watching your son, the boy who once held your hand so tightly, now look through you like you're barely there. Sophie used to adore me. She'd curl up in my lap and beg for bedtime stories. Now, I'm the nuisance who nags her about screen time. And Alicia? Her smiles are thin, stretched over sighs and eye rolls. Last week, I asked Sophie to say thank you for dinner. Alicia just muttered, "She's tired, let her be." So I did. I always do. At night, I sit in the garden long after the house has gone quiet. I stare up at the stars, wondering, what am I still doing here? I gave them everything. Every breath, every bit of me. But now it feels like I'm lingering. Not living. A remnant of a past no one remembers. Tomorrow's my wedding anniversary. 45 years. George, my husband, passed away 5 years ago. Derek said we should still mark the day. "It's your day, Mom," he told me. I nodded and smiled, but inside, a question burned: will anyone actually make it about me? George and I were young once. He worked hard, I stayed home. He used to bring me flowers, sunflowers, daisies, nothing fancy. Then the flowers stopped. So did the warmth. Over time, the silence between us grew colder than any winter. Still, I stayed. I told myself that's what love meant. Then came Derek, my reason, my joy. I poured everything into that boy. Every hug, every bedtime story, every ounce of strength. When he went off to college, I cried not from worry, but because I knew everything was about to change. And it did. He met Alicia, so poised, so sharp. She always looked like she belonged somewhere else. Somewhere I didn't. They struggled at first. Their apartment was cold, the walls thin. I paid for their heating. Quietly. I just wanted them to be warm. When Alicia became pregnant with Sophie, the struggle got harder. I moved in, helped with meals, soothed the baby at night, took care of everything. They never asked me to stay. I just did. Because I could tell they needed me, even if they never said so. When George died, I never moved back to our house. Derek said, "It makes sense for you to live with us now." So I sold the home I shared with my husband and gave the money to help buy this one. For the family, I said. Now, the house is in their names. I live in the guest room, the one with the squeaky door and the drafty window. No one ever says thank you. But no one tells me to leave, either. It's like I've become a fixture. I found an old photo yesterday, me, George, and baby Derek. All smiling, all glowing. I left it on the kitchen counter, hoping it might be used for the party. Maybe someone would remember the love that built this family. But when I came back, it was gone. Vanished. Not a word about it. This morning, the morning of the party, I woke before the sun. The house was still. I put on my robe and went downstairs to start the coffee. No one expected it. But they would have noticed if it hadn't been done. Derek said the gathering would be simple. Warm. But I know my son. He wanted pictures for Facebook. A good image. He works in insurance now. Appearances matter. I spent the day helping Alicia prepare. She moved like a woman rehearsing for a show, hair pinned, voice sharp, never still. "Mom, check the cupcakes. Chop the salad. Set the table. Fix the flowers." I did everything she asked. Quietly. Like I always do. Around 2 p.m., Sophie burst into the kitchen, phone in hand, face twisted in a frown. I said I wanted string lights. "Not these boring lanterns," she snapped. "I can hang the lights after we're done here," I offered softly. She didn't look up. Whatever. That word. Whatever. It landed like a stone in my chest. I turned away before Alicia could see my face crumble. This was supposed to be a day of remembrance. Of love. But I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere between cupcakes and centerpieces, I had disappeared completely. It's haunting how a child's words can pierce deeper than any blade, especially when that child is your granddaughter. By 5 o'clock, the house was alive with noise. Laughter drifted from the patio, glasses clinked in celebration, and soft music played in the background. I stood in the kitchen doorway, invisible in plain sight. Not a single head turned. Not a single voice called my name. Across the fence, a modest banner fluttered in the breeze, 45 years of love, Hazel George. But George had been gone for 5 years. And still, not a word was spoken about him. No toast, no speech. No one asked me to share a memory. It was like we had celebrated a number, not a life. The conversations flowed around work, weather, vacation plans. My granddaughter Sophie paraded a friend around the yard like it was her kingdom. My room's up there. That's my parents'. Grandma's weird garden is over there. She plants like strange herbs. I let out a quiet laugh. Basil and thyme, so bizarre, right? The evening dragged on. I stayed close to the punch bowl, offering smiles and refills, clearing dishes, wiping up spills, hovering, helping, fading. At one point, I asked Alicia if she wanted the cake brought out. "Oh, right," she said, not even looking up from her phone. "Yeah, sure. Go ahead." So, I did. I lit the candles myself, brought out the cake, the warmth in my smile barely masking the ache in my knees. A few claps. Some distracted singing. Then Derek stood to speak. "Everyone. Thanks for coming. We're here to celebrate my mom. 45 years ago, she married my dad. And yeah, that's special." That was it. That was the speech. No flowers. No hug. No glance in my direction. I stood there, holding a paper plate, wondering how a celebration for me could feel so hollow. But I smiled. Because that's what I've always done. Underneath, though, something stirred. A weariness not just in body, but in soul. I was tired of smiling through invisibility. The sun dipped lower. Guests lingered, scattered across the yard. I continued to clean, folding chairs and collecting cups. That's when Sophie came storming out of the house, her white hoodie flapping in her hand. "Grandma. What did you do to my sweater?" I blinked. "What happened, sweetheart?" "It shrank. I told you not to touch it." Her voice sliced through the dusk. "I didn't know," I replied gently. "The tag said it could go in the dryer. I just did the laundry, like always." "You ruined it." She screamed and turned her back on me. I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. A minute later, I followed her into the kitchen to apologize, again, not because I was wrong, but because I couldn't bear to let anger linger. That's when I saw her, standing by the counter, eyes sharp, jaw clenched. Before I could speak, she grabbed the kettle. And in one motion, she flung the water toward me. I couldn't move in time. The scalding splash hit my thigh, seeping through my dress, burning fast and cruel. I gasped, clutching the counter, knees buckling. "Sophie," I cried out, the pain blooming like fire. She stared, startled, yes. But not remorseful. Derek and Alicia rushed in. "What happened?" Derek demanded. "She threw hot water on me," I whispered, trembling. "It wasn't that hot," Sophie mumbled, eyes fixed elsewhere. Alicia came forward, touched my arm lightly, dismissively. "She didn't mean it, Hazel. She's just a kid." "She's 11, I said, breath ragged. "That wasn't an accident." "She was upset," Alicia shrugged. "You shrank her sweater." I stared at them. At their indifference. "You're blaming me?" I asked. "No one's blaming anyone," Derek interrupted quickly. "Let's just all calm down. We don't want to make a scene." A scene. My skin was blistering, and I was the problem because I reacted. I looked around, at my family. My son, my daughter-in-law, my granddaughter. And something inside me went silent. Not in anger. In finality. Like a light being switched off. This is what I gave my life to. I walked back outside, the burn throbbing beneath my dress. No one asked why I was limping. No one even noticed. I cleared the last dishes. Smiled. Waved. Then I climbed the stairs to the small guest room they called mine, shut the door, and finally, let myself cry. Quietly. Deeply. Not just for the burn. But for every moment I swallowed my pain. For every time I was told to stay quiet. To be polite. To not overreact. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, my leg pulsing in pain, and a single thought bloomed like a slow-breaking dawn. It's time. The next morning, I didn't go down for breakfast. I heard them moving around, Voices, laughter, the same rhythm. But I stayed in my room, curtains drawn, the weight of an old box in my lap. Inside, a folder, papers, bank statements, and a single sealed envelope with my name typed neatly on the front. I traced the letters with my fingers, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel the truth. I wasn't invisible. I was done being overlooked. It had been buried in the back of the drawer for years, untouched, yet unforgettable. My fingers trembled slightly as I reached for the old folder, its edges worn, but the memory inside still sharp. 5 years ago, my sister Elaine passed away. She left me everything, her entire estate. No one in the family knew. Elaine never had children, never married. But she always said I was the only one who ever truly saw her. Our bond wasn't loud or obvious. We just understood each other, two souls familiar with being needed, but never really wanted. Inside that folder was the truth I had hidden from myself: $2.4 million. A gift from Elaine. A key to a door I had never dared to open. She told me to use it for me. But I never did. Instead, I folded laundry. I wiped down kitchen counters. I picked up Sophie from school, made dinner, stayed quiet. For years. While the money sat untouched, growing silently in a savings account that no one else even knew existed. Until today. I opened the banking app. The screen flickered to life. $2,479,382.94. Still there. Waiting. Not just money, freedom, possibility, my name on something real. And just like that, the shame I carried for so long, for even thinking about choosing myself, vanished. All that remained was clarity. I could leave. I would leave. They thought I had nowhere to go. That I was just grandma, floating through their lives, invisible unless they needed something. They were wrong. That night, I made a list. Find a new place. Pack the essentials. Call Elaine's lawyer. Leave without warning. No explanations. No guilt. Just silence. Because here's what no one tells you: people only value what they fear they might lose. The morning I left began like any other. Dishes piled in the sink. Sophie yelling at her tablet. Alicia brushing past me in the hallway, eyes glued to her phone, like I didn't exist. That made it easier. I packed slowly. Not everything, just what mattered: a few photos, my favorite tea mug, a lavender dress from a party long forgotten, and the folder. I left the rest behind: the microwave, the dishes, the small appliances I had paid for. Let them have the objects. I was reclaiming myself. At 6:00 p.m., I zipped the suitcase shut. My hand grazed the pink scar on my thigh, a painful reminder of boiling water and indifference. Not once had they asked how I was. Not Derek. Not Alicia. Not even Sophie. That silence had spoken volumes. I walked downstairs. Derek was on the couch. Alicia in the kitchen. Sophie glued to her screen. "I'm heading out," I said. Derek glanced up. "Out where?" "I'm moving out." Alicia froze, knife mid-chop. "Wait. What?" "I found a place. I'm staying there from now on." Sophie didn't even look up. Derek chuckled. "Mom, come on. Be serious. You don't have a pension. Where would you even go?" I smiled. "I'll manage." "You can't just leave," Alicia said, her voice sharpening. "What about Sophie's school run? Dinner? The laundry?" "You'll figure it out," I replied quietly. "You're being unreasonable," Derek snapped. "This is about that sweater, isn't it?" "It wasn't just a sweater," I said, my voice steady. She poured boiling water on me. "And you didn't even ask if I was okay." Alicia sighed. "She's a kid. It was an accident." I looked at them. No yelling. No rage. Just truth. "You didn't check on me. You minimized the pain." That told me everything. Derek rolled his eyes. "You're overreacting." "No," I said. "For the first time. I'm not." I picked up my suitcase and turned toward the door. "Mom, don't be dramatic," Derek said, standing. I turned back one last time. I spent my whole life putting everyone else first. Now, it's my turn. And I walked out. No one followed. The building was nothing like I had ever known. Glass shimmered in the evening sun. A doorman opened the door with a warm smile. "Good evening, Miss Walker," he said. "Welcome home." Home. The word hit different. Strange. Beautiful. The apartment was on the 22nd floor. I had visited it in secret last week, while Alicia thought I was out for a walk. I hadn't said anything. I didn't need their doubts or their performative concern. It was small, but it sparkled. City lights stretched out beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. A soft gray couch waited. A tiny balcony with space for a chair and a plant. No yelling. No footsteps. No one calling Mom. From another room. I unpacked slowly. This time, for me. Each item found its place without compromise. No adjusting for anyone else. I placed a photo of George and Derek on the shelf, not with sadness, but quiet acceptance. I tilted it gently so the light hit it just right. That night, I made tea. Just one cup. Just for me. I stepped out onto the balcony, the city breathing below. No chaos. No tension. Only silence. Only peace. I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. The next morning, I picked up the phone and called Elaine's lawyer. His voice came through the line, calm and professional. "Miss Walker," he said. "How can I help you?" I looked out at the rising sun, a smile forming for the first time in years. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's begin." "Ah, Hazel. I was wondering when you'd finally reach out." His voice echoed through the phone, calm. "Certain." I smiled faintly. "I'm ready to use the money. For myself this time." He chuckled, not unkindly. "It's yours. All of it. You can finally stop asking for permission to live." That line didn't just land, it lodged itself inside me, like a key finally clicking into the right lock. Stop asking for permission to live. That day, I didn't just carry those words, I moved with them. Quietly, but deliberately, I began doing the things I'd shelved for years. Nothing grand. Just small, steady acts of reclaiming myself. A few soft, well-fitted clothes, not for show, but for comfort. Beginner piano lessons. Debussy always felt like sunlight in a bottle. A new journal, clean pages for the first honest words I'd write in years. A painting class, because I wanted to create something that didn't vanish after a day of cleaning. I told no one. Because for once, this wasn't about being seen. It was about being. For the first time in decades, I didn't wake up to chaos. No alarms. No urgent voices. No "where's my..." Or did you? Just sunlight sliding quietly across the floor. I stretched, breathed, made tea, and in the stillness, I finally heard myself think. Not as a role, but as a person. People say stay-at-home moms don't really work. Let me tell you, I was a chef, nurse, tutor, chauffeur, therapist, scheduler, fixer, and the quiet beating heart of the home that never stopped taking. I had confused that with love. But in this peaceful silence, it hit me. Love and labor are not the same. You can love, and still say I need rest. You can care, and still say I deserve space. You can give without surrendering everything. Later that week, I met June, 70. Fiery red lipstick. Sneakers that looked like they'd danced through decades. "You're new," she smiled. "You've got that look, like you finally exhaled." I laughed. She was right. We had coffee on the rooftop. She shared her story. "The day I stopped folding his socks," she said, "was the day I got my soul back." That line struck deep. That night, I opened my new journal and wrote one line. "You're allowed to exist without proving your worth." I read it aloud. Twice. Then underlined it, because I needed to believe it. Tomorrow would be my first piano lesson. I felt like a kid again, nervous, hopeful. They used to call me a ghost in my own home. Not directly, but I heard Alicia once whisper it on the phone. "She just floats around like furniture." She wasn't wrong. But not anymore. I am not haunting anyone else's life. I am finally living mine. Then came the email. Tucked between spam and receipts was a subject line that stopped my breath. "Let's talk, Mom." From Derek. I stared at it. "Hi Mom. Hope you're doing well. Sophie's been asking about you. We were thinking maybe dinner this weekend? Just us. Nothing big. Also, we're going through a rough patch. Mortgage stuff. If you're free next week, maybe we could talk." The first part felt warm. The second, like a string tied to a balloon. Or maybe I was the balloon, being tugged back in. No mention of the last phone call. No apology. Just a gentle, familiar pull. I closed the email, reopened it. Still the same words. I walked to the cafe around the corner. The barista smiled. He knew my order. "Peppermint tea with honey and a biscuit," he said. "You look peaceful." I nodded. "I feel peaceful." But inside, I was circling that email like a hawk. All my life, I would have said yes without hesitation. Because that's what mothers do, right? But this time, I didn't. I opened my phone and wrote, "Hi Derek, thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to hear Sophie is doing well, but I won't be coming to dinner. Not this weekend or the next. I need some time and space, for myself. And I'm finally learning I'm allowed to say no. Take care, Mom." No guilt. No long-winded explanation. Just clarity. I hit send. Then I sat by the window, sipping tea as the sun traced gold across my skin. Let them sit with the silence this time. It came late. Almost midnight. I was reading something soft and romantic, where people always say what they feel, and everyone gets closure. Real life isn't like that. But tonight, I felt closer to it than ever before. My phone buzzed. I was expecting a routine alert, maybe a weather update or some dull news. But when I glanced at my phone, my breath caught. A message. From Alicia. That alone was strange. We hadn't spoken since the night I walked away. Not a word. No apologies. Not even a recycled meme. My thumb hovered above the screen before I tapped to open it. Hi Hazel. I hope you're okay. I know things ended on a tense note. Sophie really misses you, and we've been reflecting on what happened. Maybe none of us handled things the right way. We're having dinner on Sunday, just the three of us. If you're open to it, we'd love for you to come. Also, I hate to ask, but dear Eric's paycheck was delayed, and things are tight. If there's any way you could help cover Sophie's tuition this month, we'd be so grateful. Just until things stabilize. No pressure, of course. Hope to see you soon. I stared at those words. Soft, careful, polite even. But not once did they say, "We're sorry." Not once did they acknowledge the weight of what they had done. They skipped right over the part where I got hurt, and landed squarely at the part where I was needed again. Needed. Not wanted. Not loved. Just convenient. I didn't reply. Not immediately. I walked to the kitchen in silence, poured a glass of water, and stood under the soft glow of the ceiling light. The glass was cold in my hand. Familiar. So was the feeling clawing at my chest. The old me would have replied. Would have said yes. Would have felt guilty. Would have convinced herself it wasn't that bad. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe they did miss me. But the new me? The one who had finally exhaled? She knew better. I walked back to bed, picked up the phone, and wrote. Alicia, I appreciate your message. I truly do. But I want to be clear, this was never about a sweater or a delayed paycheck. It was about years, of being sidelined, spoken over, and treated like a spare part in my own family. Sophie is young, but she's old enough to know the difference between disappointment and disrespect. And you? You were old enough to speak up. But you didn't. As for the money, no. You've all had enough of my time, my energy, my silence. I wish you well. But not at my expense. I read it twice before hitting send. It didn't feel cruel. It felt clear. And for the first time in a long time, clarity felt like freedom. Later that week, I found myself in the fourth-floor music room. Bright walls. A quiet little upright piano in the corner. Most residents ignored it. But for me? It was sanctuary. Leah, my teacher, smiled from the bench beside me. Don't worry about perfect, she said. This isn't a performance. It's about feeling. We started slow. Simple chords. My fingers fumbled. I laughed. She laughed with me, not at me. Even my mistakes felt like music. Like a forgotten part of myself waking up. As the lesson ended, she said gently, next week, we'll start with Claire de Lune. You said it's your favorite? I smiled. Always has been. Even before I knew what it meant. I just loved how it made me feel. She closed the lid of the piano softly. It's a beautiful piece. Soft but strong. Just like you. My heart paused. No one had ever called me that before. Soft. And strong. Not either. But both. That evening, the building hosted a small resident gathering. Coffee. Cookies. An open piano mic. June from upstairs nudged me. Go on. Play something. I'm not ready. You never are, she smirked. That's the trick. Do it anyway. So, I sat down. Not to impress. Not to prove. Just to feel. A few gentle notes. The ones Leia had shown me. The lounge grew still. Mugs were set down. One man even closed his eyes. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. When I stopped, there was clapping. Light. Genuine. Enough to say, we saw you. We heard you. In that moment, I wasn't someone's background noise. Wasn't a helper. Wasn't a shadow. I was Hazel. And I was being seen. Later, I stepped onto the rooftop garden. The wind was cool, but kind. I stood there, arms crossed, heart open. And I thought, maybe healing doesn't come with fireworks. Maybe sometimes, it comes one note at a time. It had been nearly a month since Alicia's message. No replies. No follow-ups. The silence between us stretched like a long, cold hallway. And I was okay with that. I had found rhythm. Piano on Mondays. Painting on Wednesdays. Tea with June on Fridays. For the first time in years, I belonged to myself. Then it came. A letter. A real one. Slid under my door like a whisper. I bent down, assuming it was a flyer. Or junk mail. But when I turned it over, my breath caught again. Sophie. Her handwriting, uneven but unmistakable. Hi Grandma. I don't really know how to write letters, so. Sorry if this is weird. Mom and Dad don't know I'm doing this. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I was mad and I acted stupid. You didn't deserve that. I miss you. I miss your pancakes. Your smell. And how you always tuck the bed corners like magic. Things at home are weird. Mom and Dad fight about money and other stuff. I heard your name. I don't really get it. But I hope you're okay. Love, Sophie. My hands trembled slightly. Not from sadness, not from guilt, but from the quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, she remembered the good parts, the real parts, the parts they tried to erase. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. My apartment didn't feel unfamiliar anymore. It felt like home. Every rug, every book, every frame held a piece of me, not family portraits, but images of places I longed to see. I wasn't waiting for an invitation to return. I wasn't leaving space for people who never made room for me. I hadn't just rebuilt my life, I had redefined what love meant. No longer sacrifice. Now it meant balance, intention, and respect. And I had all of that. It had been exactly 1 year since I walked out of Derek's house. Since that party where they toasted my anniversary while I stood invisible in the background. But tonight? Tonight I was standing in the center of my space, stringing soft fairy lights around the windows. My favorite tea steeped in the kitchen. Gentle piano music floated from the speaker, not Claire de Lune this time, but something light and joyful. This wasn't a celebration for anyone else. It was for me. June arrived first, holding a box of lemon tarts. You're glowing, she said with a smile. I bought mascara, I replied proudly. First time in a decade. She laughed. Look at you. Then came Leia, my piano teacher, carrying a framed sheet of music. It read, you played for yourself, and that was enough. I nearly cried. Neighbors followed, bringing flowers, wine, hugs, a card that simply read thank you for being exactly who you are. No one expected me to serve. No one waited for me to clean up. They just shared the evening with me, with laughter, with warmth, with presence. At one point, June raised her glass. To Hazel, she said, who let go of everyone else's expectations and built a life entirely her own. The room filled with quiet cheers. I lifted my glass too. I didn't throw everything away, I said. Just the pieces that kept me small. I paused, then added, a year ago, I walked out of a house I helped build. I left behind people I loved. But I took something they never thought I would, myself. My time. My voice. My dignity. And that turned out to be worth more than anything I ever gave them. More applause. More love. And for the first time, I stood in a room of people who saw me. Not as a caretaker. Not as a convenience. Just Hazel. After everyone left, I sat on my balcony with a blanket wrapped around me and stars above. The city hummed below, but up here, everything was still. I thought about George. About Derek. About Sophie. And then, I let them go. I picked up my journal and wrote just 5 words: happy anniversary to my freedom. Then I closed it, smiled softly, and went to bed.